I've gone on sort of like the opposite journey in that I feel like I started off atheistic just the same way that I would reject any attempt to impose regulation or control on me for the purposes of domination. But like, as I've gone through my own stuff with addiction and mental health or whatever it is, and like I know that you're very that, for example, afterlife is about legitimate grief as opposed to some kind of abstract idea of mental illness brought about by hormonal or neurological balance. But myself, my own sense of despair, particularly looking at it from a perspective of mental health issues and addiction, is that there is an unaddressed yearning for a kind of oneness, togetherness, and like to your point earlier about Brent, indeed for love. And when like you talk about that sense of awe of like the appreciation of an animal, the love of an animal, and the sort of regard and gratitude for having an animal love you and care for you, or the beauty of nature, or the deep beauty of the cosmos, what I feel like, and my own appreciation, understanding, stroke belief in God is that there is a kind of, in the love of it, in the awareness of rightness itself, there is an indication that there is such a thing as rightness. Not that any one particular group or ideology has unique, a particular and special access to it, and I really firmly, deeply believe that spirituality is for me, not for me to tell other people, boy, I don't reckon you should be gay, or I don't reckon you should be allowed to do it. Like, I feel like I do my shit.
In the Bible it says you should pray secretly.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, like there is something sort of deeply private about it. But I also think, Ricky, that there is a social consequence to I don't necessarily want to say atheism, because I completely agree with your point that there's good and bad, in like beyond those kind of limited taxonomies. But like, I do feel like when people think there's no purpose or meaning, that and that needn't necessarily be just because of a belief in God, that it creates cultures that are oddly materialistic, nihilistic. And I feel like in the last 20 years we're seeing more and more worship of self, worship of individual.
Of course, there's a new narcissism, of course, and I don't know why. I think social media is partly to blame. I think people being rewarded for bad behaviour is partly to blame. Magazines or TV or whatever. I did a speech in the Big Brother house as Andy Millman in extras, and again, that was at the beginning of it, and now it's got worse. But couple of points. I do think there's people crave a oneness, even if we don't go about understanding about why we're here, because again, that's very human. We're inquisitive. We want to know why. We want the answer why, and some people don't accept. We don't know yet, but we're on the way. They got no. Well, that's no. The God of the gaps. We understand that. Well, if you don't know how to explain it, God did it. Okay, it doesn't really solve anything. Even down to the. I put a joke in Afterlife where Kath's bothering me, and she says, "Where did it all come from? Somewhat from nothing." And I go, "Well, where did it all come from then?" She goes, "God made it." I go, "Okay, where did God come from?" She went, "He's always been around." I go, "Simple as that, isn't it?" So. It doesn't answer the question, but I get it. And I think, apart from people wanting there to be some sort of divine justice, because that would be great. Good people would be rewarded and bad people would be punished. Brilliant. Okay, it doesn't work like that. You only have to look at, children in Africa being born with cancer, and we know that's not. We know mysterious ways isn't an explanation. Okay, that to me is someone who doesn't know the answer and says mysterious ways. But apart from that, you're right. We're seeking the answer. Why are we here? I think we think that. Hold on. Well, it's too good. It's too good to be chance. Everything's perfect. Well, it seems that way. It's like Douglas Adams' puddle. When it imagines this, I fit this hole perfectly. But I think you're right. We are scared and alone, and the idea of death is horrible. What, you'll never exist again? What was the point? And again, I talk about this in Afterlife 1, where I say, Kath's saying that if you think it's there's no heaven, why don't you kill yourself? And I say, so if you're watching a really good film but it's going to end, you might as well just stop it. She went, no, because I can watch it again. And I say, I think that's the amazing thing about life. You can't watch it again. You know, one day you'll hug, you know, your mum for the last time. You'll smell your last flower. You'll eat your last meal. You won't know it's your last, but it will be your last. And so you've got to make the most of everything. And it is a terrifying prospect. It is like sad that we'll never exist again, I think. But it doesn't mean it's not true. You know, the bottom line is, I can't believe something I don't believe. And so how do I find meaning? Well, we are here. We are here. The chances of us being us, you being you and me being me, existing now, that sperm hitting that egg is 400 trillion to 1. You know, we're not special, but we are lucky. We do exist. It's incredible. And I think of it, it's like a holiday. We don't exist for 13.5 billion years. Then we explode into this this electronic blob of thought, introspection, love, hate, fear, beauty, horror for 80, 90, 100 years if we're lucky. Then we die and we never exist again. We return, our atoms return, and it carries on, right? And that's not scary, because I think people are scared of death because they don't know what's beyond. And someone said to me, well, what do you think it feels like when you die? And I say, like the 13.5 billion years before I was born. And that was all right. So, but the big thing is injecting meaning. I think you're totally right. When you start thinking about it, why are we here? Well, I mean, not even the how, but why? Well, to live your life to the fullest and not hurt anyone, to leave the world in a better place than it was when you came into it, to experience everything, all the reasons, all the obvious reasons, you know, love, wine, dogs, learning, all these great things that you can do every minute of every day that you're alive. And then you check out. You go, I'm done, thanks. And it's done, and it's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful.
It is beautiful. But I was struck when you said that by a few things. One is like the sort of like the injection of meaning, as in, you know, like meaning would have to be imported externally, fabricated somehow, invented. Whereas I think on some level I feel that that meaning is inhered, and that the meaning is in the kind of zeal that you have when you describe the things that give you love, pleasure, you know, connection, whether it's wine or dogs or whatever. I've had like some experiences like through meditation, and when I took drugs too young, and now I'm not allowed to do ayahuasca or LSD or them things that I would definitely be doing if I wasn't in recovery. But I had like sort of these experiences that were a kind of, I would say, a sort of an evaporation of self and yet a continued awareness. I know that my consciousness is connected to my biology, but I have a sense somewhat derived from the sort of the fact that, you know, you can't trace how you know, mechanical parts ever become conscious, that consciousness may be elemental somehow. Now that doesn't point to a god in a traditional patriarchal or domineering sense, but it sort of points to an element that's very difficult to quantify, whether that's the deep intelligence of nature, the deep mathematics of biochemistry and biology, and the essential mystery of consciousness itself, you know, commonly referred to as the hard problem. And through these sort of individual experiences, whilst I've not had anything that you would call typically religious, Jesus emerging out of a tunnel, Ganesh lashing around, or any of that sort of stuff, what I've had is like it's highly bloody interpretive, because say there's this one breath thing I do. You breathe from the abdomen very aggressively, and then you sort of take a sharp inhale, and you're nearly, well, a medical man would say what you're doing there is hyperventilating and nearly passing out. But from the inside, what it feels like is bloody hell. For this moment, I'm aware and I am not me. What is this? What is this? Is there a possibility that my awareness, your awareness, the awareness of all animals, and an awareness that's impossible to read greed is somehow present in all nature, in all matter. And if that's true, then there's a kind of a genuine cohesion and togetherness between all of the beings of the earth and beyond. And those people that can't actually enjoy the lives that we are privileged to have, of the red wine or the dogs or whatever, like, I'm not saying that's some sort of comfort to them, but in fact those of us that are in privileged position might feel newly incentivized to work towards a different kind of society and system that is more reflective of those values. Now, that doesn't necessarily require monotheism, pantheism, or any of those things, but it is somewhat underwritten by a kind of a sameness and a oneness, and how that might relate to justice. And also there is a sort of a personal experience of mystery in it. I wonder what you feel about that, and if you're curious about psychedelics and that and altered states and that.